Find out how to get more done and be true to your purpose by focusing on the Sacred Six as I talk to J.B. Glossinger in this interview. Living life your way is what life is all about. And to do that in a practical way, it's important that you have your philosophy down as well as understand how you can get by in the world practically. And I found a book I want to share with you. It's called The Sacred Six. I read it on my iPad, and a great little book here. And I got it from the author himself, who's joining us now from his offices in South Florida. His name is J.B. Glossinger, and J.B. joins us now. J.B., great to have you with us today.
Hey, Terry, I'm so excited to be here. It's awesome to share knowledge and have some fun.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. Well, I love your book. I mean, what you put together here, I thought was very practical, and it shows how to live life and getting your ideas of a practical, pragmatic way of living aligned with the spiritual side as well, which is very important. And so what I'd like to do is be able to go through the book, highlight a few pages, and we can talk about those. Let the folks that are watching be able to see this, and then get your comments on that. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, fantastic, Terry. Let's go. Let's run this.
Excellent. Well, then what we're going to do is going to use some of the technology today that we have, and we're going to share my screen with you so that I can let you say, okay, here's what we've got, and you'll be able to see it and see it right on the screen there. So here we go. We're putting this together and make it happen like that. There we go. And we can see the Sacred Six is what it's called. And I love the way that you describe that of the six things that we want to look at and why the number six. But as you go through it and you talk about it, we can see that it's available there. By the way, also you can see here, published by Hay House. And this is where you'll want to look for it when you're out there looking around to see what's available. Lots of good information in here. And I loved as I looked at the introduction. This is something I would encourage those of you that are reading this to read. The introduction had a lot of good ideas of why sacred and why six. And JB, since we've got you on the line right here, help us with that. Why sacred and why six?
Well, first of all, sacred is just a term to me that I think is very important. It's always been very important in my life. When you hold something sacred, it's just not something to do. It's something that means something really important to you. And so personally, I believe that living the life that you want to live, being free and doing what you want to do and having that liberty and that freedom is very important to people. But I think a lot of people don't hold that list that's going to get them there sacred. And so that's where the sacred comes from. The six actually comes from a very interesting story. And do you mind if I share the Ivy Lee story?
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Matter of fact, that's one of the things that I was looking at here. We see as I went through this, I saw a lot that you had took some notes on here. Matter of fact, you can see I was using the red highlights here on that.
Awesome.
Freedom really important on there. And as I would go through, I could take these notes and look at it. I love the message that you had about that right here. Is that about Ivy Lee and Charles Schwab, and really important story on page 16, by the way, for those of you that are watching this. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think all, great processes are, founded somewhere, right? There's some history. And one of the things I've learned in life is that success leaves clues. And, you can learn a lot by reading and finding the things that your mentors have read. So if they've read a certain book or done a certain thing, you can kind of do the same things, which allows you to kind of get that same knowledge that they got. So I listen to a lot of tapes. I'll say tapes back in the day. They're now MP3s, obviously, but in the day they were tapes and albums and
yeah, I remember those. Audio cassettes, I think they called them.
Audio cassettes, remember that? Well, years ago, I was listening to one, and it was actually one of the first personal development. It was actually done by an album. Earl Nightingale did it. Earl Nightingale, which was called Lead the Field. Many of us know or have heard of Earl Nightingale, which is just a father, kind of one of the forefronts of the audio development world, right? And I had to find an old tape player, and I laid down on the couch and I had the tape player in. I believe it's called Lead the Field is the name of what it was. And I started listening.
That was one of his very prominent programs.
Yeah.
Lead the Field. He's very famous for that. Matter of fact, you can get that on YouTube now as well.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's out there. I know it is. And it's from years ago. But he told a story that Napoleon Hill told. And Napoleon Hill is known for Think and Grow Rich. So when you hear Napoleon Hill telling a story, I kind of perked up. I was actually kind of falling asleep and I heard Napoleon Hill told this story. And I said, well, I've read everything Napoleon Hill's done, so I probably have heard it. But I'd never heard this before. And so it kind of blew me away. And it was that Ivy Lee was a gentleman that went into Charles Schwab, who was running the steel companies back in the day. And I have kind of a connection there because I'm from LaPorte, Indiana, and Gary, Indiana is where the big steel industry was built years ago. So it's kind of a weird connection. But Ivy Lee went into Charles Schwab and says, hey, look, I've got an idea that will help you. And Charles Schwab said, I don't need any more ideas. I need more doing. And he said, well, I got something. And he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do this process. And so he said, write down the 6 things you need to do today. I want you to prioritize them and not go to number 2 until number 1 is finished. Now, remember, this is back before any distractions, and so it was all about focusing on the task at hand and getting those things done. Well, Charles Schwab took that idea and used it for months and then implemented it with his executive team. And he says that this is a big reason for his success in building the steel industry back in the day. And he gave Ivy Lee a check for $25,000 for that 20-minute lesson, which today is about $250,000 because he felt it was so valuable. And for me, it blew me away that this little known esoteric idea or process didn't go out to the world. Like it was this secret that's, Earl Nightingale shared with me. So I looked at that and said, you know what, I'm going to start implementing this in my life. And I started to implement that process, which was the original 6. But then over the last 20 years, and then, distilling it down the last 10 and coaching thousands of people, I turned it into a total life plan with that as a foundation. That's just the daily task aspect of it. And then I've incorporated the mission, the values, the goals, and the projects, and the daily Sacred 6 to include multiple 6s. So, there's 6 values, there's a mission, there's 6 things you do. You can't work on more than 6 projects. So the 6 comes from various places, but the history really was founded back with Napoleon Hill, his story about Ivy Lee and Charles Schwab. So there's some cool history behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm familiar with that story, and many people think about that. I love the way you go in depth on it in the book, and you give not only the story, but also you talk about other areas that are very important. Matter of fact, let's go back here to the sharing screen part of this and let folks see what can be done with this. And I loved your reaction on it as well, as what you said here after you told that story. You put in here, and notice what I did here. I had to circle this one, red flag it here with a big star too. So I leaped up from my sofa as if a bucket of ice cold water had been dumped on me. Wow, I thought, simple but effective. Focus on one idea at a time and prioritize. I can do that. And I really like the way that you said that. And then you lead right into some very practical applications. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tap into your wisdom and knowledge here, where we look at the AMVG, the 4 ingredients that you talk about extensively. Give us kind of a big picture, a 30,000 foot point of view on this, of what AMVG stands for and what you talk about in the book on that.
Well, I think the key thing with the whole process and the issue people have, first of all, it's very simple. And why I wanted to put this together and why it's helped so many people is because it's very simple. And part of the big issue that we have is the focus issue, right? And we're chasing butterflies all over the place. And that's the foundational point of the Sacred 6 is, first of all, finding that focus and then being able to prioritize and being consistent towards that process. And it's about the small things that you do every day. And so one of the big issues that I had and why that part of the book is so important is that a lot of people are driving towards things that they think they want, but they don't really want. And so their focus and stepping back and thinking about that a little bit is so critical, because if you don't think about focus, right? If you don't think about the direction you're going and you're going there, you end up like me, back in corporate, running an aerospace company, thinking that this was the dream and trying to settle with that dream mentally when I was miserable inside, crushing and crying because I had no freedom, thinking that I don't understand. I don't have a right to feel bad because I got a great job. I got a great career. I got everything going in my life. I shouldn't feel bad, right? I should feel actually good right now. I should be grateful for this job that I've been given. But it's not, the opposite is true. Our life is about freedom and doing the things that we should be able to do. They're just the greatest time to be alive. But it has to do with your focus. So my focus was get the MBA, stay in business, go through the corporate ladder. But at the end of the day, that wasn't me. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I want to wear t-shirts and hang out and help people and love people and build a business around that, which I've been able to do. But I couldn't before because I wasn't I didn't have the right focus. I didn't have the consistency. And I wasn't prioritizing the things in my life the right way. I was prioritizing the higher salary each year instead of prioritizing what was going to bring me freedom and less responsibility instead of more. So that's a very important part of the book, is just getting that concept of higher level thought of saying, hey, why am I going this direction? And maybe the focus needs to shift a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a very important part. Matter of fact, one of the things that you shared in the book that I thought was just really profound. I mean, there's so many that were there that resonated with me here. Matter of fact, it was on here that I saw. One of the things I wanted to share with you that you talked about here on page 41, when you said, suddenly it hit me. I didn't want to be a speaker. I wanted to speak when I wanted to speak, and the rest of the time be at home with my family. Notice how I really agree with that. Yes, said that meant that the people I thought I wanted to be like really weren't who I wanted to be. I needed to shift my mission. And I love this here. As you continue through the Sacred Six process, it's essential to be flexible, to maintain your ability to change and change quickly if required. That one really resonated with me because it's something that says, hey, what we want to do is not necessarily what others have said is the cool thing to do. Because you and I both being professional speakers, there are those that we know, people that have chosen a different path as a speaker. They like to be out on the road as much as possible. And I've done it in the past years ago. Every day is a different city. You know what I'm talking about, JB. It's
Yep.
oh, Monday you're in San Diego. Tuesday you're in Seattle. Wednesday in Boston. Thursday you're down in Miami. And Friday you're up in Kansas City. And then next week we do it all over again. And that can really wear you out physically, mentally, spiritually. And even though you can get a lot of money with that, after a while you go, I don't really want any more. And I remember times I would go, I really don't want to go to whatever city it was, as much as I enjoyed what I was doing. And I love the fact that you said that. I know a lot of people watching this will be able to resonate with that as well. And then you say here, why is one of the most important questions you can ask yourself. When you discover your whys in life, you uncover your mission, your true motivation. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, and first of all, Terry, I appreciate you because I was able to meet you at one of the National Speaker Association or FSA back in the day, and
that's Florida Speakers Association.
Yeah, and that's been a big influence on my life. In fact, you gave me the first technology to start the morning coach back in the day, which was just awesome. So, which has now led to major publishing book and seeing my dreams come true of being in a bookstore. So it's awesome. So I appreciate you.
Oh, but glad to do it.
Yeah, no. And it's, and that's what it's about, sharing. And so when I think the issue we have in life is we always see somewhere we want to go. Even now for me, I mean, it's like, okay, what's the next level? What's the next thing? We got to be very cautious about really understanding the emperor wears no clothes, right? So we get there and it's kind of like, why did I want this? Be careful what you ask for. And so that question, why, always kind of keeps you understanding, why do I want the Ferrari? Am I having a midlife crisis? Do I need a feeling of, I feel hip again? Why do I need to be a speaker? As you know, Terry, a lot of people in our world that use speaking as therapy. They need to be on that stage because they've got such a self-esteem issue that they need that buildup. So
yes, you're right.
And it's okay, but you got to be aware of why you're doing the things you're doing. And I think that's the issue I see a lot of times is that, and what the process helps with is figuring out, this is direction I need to go, and then moving in that direction instead of like I wanted to be a speaker, realizing, wow, this isn't what I wanted to do. I had to change my whole process at that point because I didn't want to be on the road every day.
Yeah, and I think that relates to people that are watching this who are speakers. You have to find the right mix for you. And there might be a time in life when you say, hold it, for the next month, the next 2 months, or whatever it is, you say, I'm willing to just go for it because I've got a special project. We know many times, a matter of fact, a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Randy Gage.
Yep.
I remember I was concerned for Randy and his health because before his book came out, he was on doing that. Every day was a different city or 2 cities in a day. But Randy also understands the importance of pacing so that there's sometimes when you do have to push for that. But long-term, you need to find what works best for you.
Yeah, Terry, and I like to think life is jazz. I mean, I really do. I love
Yeah.
jazz. You know, it kind of just goes, and you're gonna have to. I don't know any really, really successful people that are living their dreams that don't push. Sometimes, you know, you've got to get out there and make it
Yeah,
happen.
there's a time for it. There's a time
Yeah,
to push. Now, I can look at kind of like driving on I-95 there in South Florida. There's
yeah,
sometimes you can really go after. There's other times it's a parking lot.
yep.
And so you don't say, I'm always going to go at this speed, and it doesn't matter what the speed limit officially is posted. You got to adapt and roll with it. Wouldn't you say?
Well, and that's
Like that?
yeah, and that's part of the problem with a lot of the processes that people do is they put a goal together and then they go after something and they think they got to continue and it becomes a grind, right? And then it's no fun anymore and then it becomes work and then it's just they drop out or they go a different direction and you need a process that's very flexible. So when something happens, if you have a health issue or you got to talk to your 12-year-old daughter again or something you need to bring the happiness and peace back into your life, that's what the Sacred Six brings. It's more of a process oriented process that's very dynamic that can shift and flow with you. So when you have something happening, you could make the shift and you don't have to I think everybody has that kind of black and white thinking like, oh, I'm a success or a failure. No, you kind of you flow with it, and when you need to make a shift, you shift, and there really aren't any successes or failures. It's just this dynamic flow of life. And a lot of the processes that I've been with studied over the years, it was kind of like this finite thing that if you didn't do it, you were a loser, right? You didn't succeed, but that's not true. Maybe it's a shift in direction. By me getting involved in the speaking world, putting out my first book, self-publishing, and not having any success, selling 5 copies, it was just a disaster. It got me here. So was that a failure? I 10 years ago, my dream was to be in the bookstores. That was my dream. It was 10 years ago. Well, I'm here now. I don't even remember the last 10 years. It went so fast. So my point is, it's like, was that a failure? And I could have given up very easily, but I trusted this process. I shifted because the process allows me to say, hey, I got to go learn some internet stuff because this isn't the direction. So my mission needs to change from being this big motivational speaker to figuring out how to do this stuff on the internet. And that's what I think so special about this. Helping people, really be flexible in the direction they're going, and also taking away that idea that I'm a failure because it didn't go exactly as planned.
Yeah, I like it. There really are no failures, as we say, but there's learning experiences, and we always learn from it. And you're defining your life as you want it to be. And you keep talking about that over and over in the book, and so many gems that are here. We could go on this I could just keep going for several hours on this, but I realize we can't do that. But I do want to wrap things up here with a quote from your book I thought was really ideal here on page 126. Think of the Sacred Six as a lifestyle and a method of self-care. It's a process of organization that can help you become more effective in your career and your relationships. And it will help you find inner peace because you know that you are on the right path at all times. Tell us more about that.
No, I think, if anybody has ever had financial issues where they didn't balance their checkbook, this is what I equate it to. And you feel, you sit down and do your bills and you don't really know what's coming in or coming out. You don't have that budget. And it's just a really nasty, dirty feeling. It's like, it's just, you're not at peace. You're not happy because you don't know the inflows and outflows. In life, it's the same thing. When you don't have a process or a direction, or you don't feel you're going there, it kind of gets discombobulated sometimes. And what this process does is it's just like balancing and organizing your checkbook. Even if you don't have a lot of money, you're like, okay, at least I'm organized. At least I know this money's going there, this money's going there. And I'm feeling pretty good about it. I know I have a plan now. Well, this takes that idea and applies it to your entire life. So it's like, hey, at least I got a plan that I can fall back on instead of just going, through life without a rudder and trying to figure out where I'm going to end up. At least I got a process. And the thing is, like I just mentioned, it's important that the process is flexible. And that's what this does, is it allows you to kind of go through the flow of life without having some finite thing that's in front of you.
Yeah, and one thing you talk about is Sarah, a person who shows how she can work with her life and how she can make it work. You give some real-world practical examples. JB, you've put together a book here that not only gives us the big picture of why we're doing what we're doing, which is most important, but right down to some of the nitty-gritty of what we should do in our daily lives, how we plan, how to make it work. For those of you that are watching this is a book I strongly recommend you look into. Get this, put in the time, the money, and the energy to get the book, and then start using it, implement implementing it. It's the kind of book that can really help you a lot in your life, both in business and in the why of life. JB, if somebody says, hey, I want to get in touch with a book, I want to know more about you and your morning coach program, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, one of the cool things, Terry, I'm doing is I put a 6-module course together for anybody that buys the book. I just really want everybody to get this. This is videos and PDFs and workbooks. It's totally free for anybody that buys the course. They can get that at sacred6, the number 6.com. Okay, not spelling it out, so sacred6.com. And morningcoach.com is my morning coach program. It's been around for years. And then obviously my last name is Glossinger, Glossinger. And there's a website there which has got a link to the course and a lot of other really cool goodies that you can find out about.
Excellent. Thank you. And I love that, by the way. Those of you that are watching this, think about it. Many of you are thought leaders. What JB has done is he's put together just a consummate book that is marvelous and worth 10 times, 100 times more than you'll pay for it, but also the course that goes with it. So he goes even farther. He's done a lot with video, done a lot with audio. Podcasting is great. I was glad to be able to give some ideas to get the podcast started. And if you haven't listened to Morning Coach by now, go over there. Everything is Morning Coach, and you can find out about that as well. JB, before we let you go, any final words, any admonition, any thoughts that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I'm kind of selfish in this way that I know if everybody starts to start to live their potential and bring their greatness, whether it's cure cancer or create a new paperclip for me, that betters my life. And so it's my dream to guide and help people become better. And it's great because I can be a little selfish because it makes my life good too. But at the end of the day, it makes all of our lives better when everybody goes out there and works on their freedom and becoming better and bringing their contribution to society. And that's what it's about. Everybody's a hero in their own way. Doesn't have to be these huge contributions, but if you can just bring that good energy and work on your dreams, it makes the world a lot better.
Absolutely. JB Glossinger, thank you so much. You're a good buddy, good friend of mine, and I admire you. I've known you for many years, and those of you watching this, the man is real. He's just as real here as when it's just us together, one-on-one, lots of wisdom, lots of great ideas, and I'm glad to know him. You'll want to get to know him as well. JB, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Terry, so much for having me.
And for you, those of you viewing, thank you. And I encourage you now, don't let this just be a good video that you saw. And you go, oh, yeah, that was like one. I really nice. That's nice. I want you to take it to the next level. I want you to seriously look into the book. Look into these concepts, the philosophies. Go back and watch this again. One of the reasons we wanted to use the technology of bringing this on board is so that you can see the actual book and look at that. Go back over this, take notes, and find out what's relevant to your life. You'll be glad you did. I'm Terry Brock with terrybrock.com, and I will look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.